Training camp is full swing ahead for the Kansas City Chiefs, and unfortunately, Chris Jones has not arrived. Due to recent reports saying that the Kansas City Chiefs and Chris Jones are not close on a contract extension, I will give you my main takeaways and my thoughts on this situation. But before we do jump into all of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. We are officially at the point of the Chris Jones contract negotiation where you got my attention. If you would have asked me a couple months ago, which I actually did address Chiefs Kingdom on how are we feeling on this Chris Jones situation? Do you think he will get extended? Do you think that maybe this will linger? Or do you think the Kansas City Chiefs will trade him? Let me know how you are feeling. And the majority of Chiefs Kingdom felt that Chris Jones would get a contract underway. Well, now 2 months has come and gone, and the Kansas City Chiefs are ready to kick off camp. Actually, they have kicked off camp, and unfortunately, Chris Jones is not there. And due to reports that Adam Schefter has mentioned, that him and the Kansas City Chiefs are nowhere near a deal, which is a bit surprising in my eyes. And the reason I find it a little bit surprising is because I guess the type of vibes we got coming into training camp on the Kansas City Chiefs side and a little bit on Chris Jones' side as well, because we saw him at the ESPYs. He looked happy to be with the team. He even mentioned that he kind of sort of had a good relationship with Brett Veach. He praised him nonetheless, I should say. It seemed like things were going in the right direction. And then here, not close, it's like, okay, what are we doing? Now, coming into camp, I'm not surprised that Chris Jones is holding out to start off because he's trying to get a new contract. That is perfectly understandable and honestly expected. I thought to hash out this type of deal may take some time into camp. But again, those quotation not close makes it seem like, oh, this can go into August and maybe into preseason. How lengthy will this be? And also, how truthful are these reports as well? Because we've heard reports like this and it's like the next day a deal happens or in that same week. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? So is that something basically to add spice during a dry off season? Who knows? I still tend to believe that Chris Jones will be extended by the Kansas City Chiefs. For one, he's the key focal point on this defense. He is the best defensive player, not on the Kansas City Chiefs, in this league. Yes, you can look and say Aaron Donald, whoever you may want to praise for. Understandably so. But if you just look at last year and what Chris Jones did for the Kansas City Chiefs, they do not win a Super Bowl without him. So I think they need to pay him. I think they need to extend him. But who am I to? Like, I'm not a two-time Super Bowl GM. I'm just a fan saying my piece on everything too. But also, looking at the business side for the Kansas City Chiefs, I can see where there can be standstill, and I can see where these contract negotiations can get really heavy, because I think the one thing we notice about Brett Veach is that he won't overpay for a dude. And even in the Chris Jones essence as well. I don't want to say overpay, but he wants to find the right contract that is doable for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you got to look, ever since Brett Veach has taken over from John Dorsey, he had to get the Kansas City Chiefs out of contract hell with those big contracts like Eric Berry that they were trying to find salary some way, somehow to sign draft picks and to sign players. You could tell Brett Veach never wants to be there again. So when he looks at a guy like Chris Jones, he's like, yes, Chris Jones has been amazing for us. Yes, I would love Chris Jones to retire as a Kansas City Chief. But do I want to pay Chris Jones around $30 million a year at the age 34 when he's definitely past his prime? That's where things can get a little held up. Now, if you look at Chris Jones now, I don't think that's the issue whatsoever. I believe both sides would agree on around $28 to $30 million a year. But the way Brett Veach and the way the NFL structures contract nowadays, it's back end heavy. And that's when that can put you in cap hell. When a player starts to decline or starts maybe to fight off injury, God forbid, or anything like that, and then you have to release a player and you're fighting with that cap space. It's something that they're doing with Frank Clark this year because They had to release him, and now they're dealing with a little bit of cap space. Not as bad as what it could be from prior years, but it's something that Brett Veach really, really tries to avoid, and that's why this may take a little time. I believe it gets done, but it'll still take time. Now, I want to address the crowd because it is a crowd that came out of nowhere once they heard these reports, and it's like, just trade Chris Jones. And I'm like, whoa, let's not do that. Like, that is not the case whatsoever. And I think we're too late in the offseason because it's not offseason really anymore. It's the new season. Training camp is underway to where trading Chris Jones now doesn't really do any benefit for the Kansas City Chiefs unless they get a good, solid veteran player that can help them this season. You don't trade Chris Jones now for draft picks and hope for next year, because that's just not the case. Like, you are striving to win a Super Bowl now. You are striving to repeat. So the scenario that could likely happen is that Chris Jones can hold out for a couple weeks. Once preseason starts, he'll show up, maybe not under a new deal, and he'll play this year, and then this contract renegotiation will take place in the spring, and then we got to re-deal with the whole situation. Chris Jones, I really want to bank on it, and I say it kind of hesitantly because you never know what can happen in the NFL, but I really believe Chris Jones will be a Kansas City Chief next year. I think it's going to get very interesting in the future if he doesn't get extended this summer, but that's for the future. The only way I can see Chris Jones getting traded is if it's for like a veteran star defensive pass rusher. Like, you don't just create a huge hole on the defense to get draft picks for the future. That doesn't happen. They would have traded him in April before the draft, kind of like they did with Tyreek Hill. And I also want to address that crowd as well because they really believe this is a Tyreek Hill situation, and it is not. Yeah, you can compare the star power of both players and how reliable that they are for the team and how much they mean for the team. I give you that. But the offense has so much firepower with Patrick Mahomes, of course, and then Travis Kelce, and then Tyreek Hill. You got three players to where you saw they can still move without Tyreek Hill. It doesn't take anything away from Tyreek Hill. It's just that's how good the offense is without him. If you remove Chris Jones, this could be a pretty bad defense. Yes, they do have promising stars on there and players that I don't want to discredit either. But they're young players. And the thing is, this defensive line, if the Kansas City Chiefs were to trade Chris Jones, all those question marks would start popping up in my head is, why didn't you prepare for this? Now, yes, they re-signed a Derek Nottie and they drafted a guy like Keandre Coburn out of Texas. But if you're moving on from Chris Jones, you at least get someone who is ready to play and start and fill that position. And I really believe Brett Veach is not ready to move on from Chris Jones, at least this year, because we've seen it before, even in the Tyreek Hill situation, is he makes sure that those pieces are next in line before he moves forward. And they're just not there, because if you move on from Chris Jones, your next best bet is a Derek Nottie, which he's a serviceable defensive tackle, but honestly, nothing really that great. And I'm sorry I'm sounding a little harsh, but that is a huge decline to where it's like, what does the defensive line do next? And then you're really going to have to be heavily dependent on guys like George Karlaftis, who we all assume will take a huge year two bounce, which I'm excited to see that because at a year one, he ended phenomenal. Did I say that right? Phenomenally. You know what? We're not even going to struggle on a word there. And then Charles Omenihu as well, who is a very promising stud, who can play defensive tackle and who can play pass rusher as well. But they would all complement so tremendously if Chris Jones was there. And you just can't lose that piece. And to go on to Chris Jones' side, there's a reason why he's fighting for this contract, and it's because it could be his last huge payday, with or without the Kansas City Chiefs. If the Kansas City Chiefs next offseason decide, hey, we're going to tag you, you can hit the market and do whatever you want, he'll get paid, and someone will pay him handsomely, or the Kansas City Chiefs will. It's all basically a bang for your buck what's going to happen there. But the Kansas City Chiefs aren't just going to let him go or trade him in 2023. It just won't happen. Chris Jones deserves to be paid, and I believe the Kansas City Chiefs know that as well. It's how is it going to happen and when is it going to happen? If I'm going to give you my honest standpoint, like I mentioned, I believe the Kansas City Chiefs do extend him, but I'm starting to question if it'll be this summer or not. I really am. I feel like both sides will get to a certain point where I believe they'll heavily talk throughout this training camp, but I think then it's going to be, okay, we're not close. We'll move forward. Let's see how the season plays out, and we'll revisit this. Kind of like the Orlando Brown situation. The only thing that's different from the Orlando Brown situation is the Kansas City Chiefs, again, believed they can move forward without Orlando Brown, and they ended up signing a guy like Jawan Taylor. Even though he's a right tackle, they addressed the need at the offensive line. If they have to do that next year, they'll do that at the defensive tackle position. But honestly, I just can't imagine them without Chris Jones this year. That would be honestly that would be more shocking to me than when they traded for Tyreek Hill. I really believe so. Like, he is the true centerpiece of this defense, and I don't even know what kind of haul you could get if you traded Chris Jones, because a lot of people are going to try to compare it to the Tyreek Hill trade. And honestly, that trade is so unique. I feel like Chiefs Kingdom would be so upset to see the trade package for Chris Jones, because they would not look anything similar. And that would frustrate Chiefs Kingdom so much, because how many picks you get for Tyreek Hill? Like 5? You're not getting 5 picks for Chris Jones. I'm sorry. It's just not happening. Someone will trade for him, maybe a first, maybe a multiple first, but you're not getting all those picks. Maybe in that situation, a veteran pass rusher in a second. But you see what I'm saying? It's only going to be like 2 picks. It's not going to be 5. It's going to be 2 different scenarios. So Chiefs Kingdom, you're saying trade him. You're not going to get the package you want. I guarantee it. It's not going to be 5 picks. That was a unique situation with Tyreek Hill. But again, who would have thought we would have got 5 picks for Tyreek Hill? So that's neither here nor there. But I'm focusing on the now, and I really, really believe the now involves Chris Jones. Because if he's not there, I don't know what direction this defense will take. I really love where this offense is going, and I honestly feel like a lot more people have questions about the offense than the defense, because they feel this defense could be a top 10 unit, and they feel like this offense may take a step back because the wide receivers, the offensive line, you name it, people like to throw questions at this offense like Patrick Mahomes ain't there and will lead a top unit. Come on, guys. But without Chris Jones on this defense, you're dealing with a situation in my eyes. With that, I'm going to close this video off, but don't think I did not forget. Today was day 1 of Chiefs training camp in full swing ahead. I will have that video out early in the morning. I wanted to go basically in a full video view of this Chris Jones situation and give you my thoughts and opinions on it, because unfortunately I was out and about yesterday, so I couldn't get a quick video. So it's the perfect time to do it now. So tomorrow morning, day 1, there was a lot of action. Definitely on the offense and also on the defensive side too. Kansas City Chiefs football is back. They're going to try to repeat. It's going to be fun. Please do subscribe to the channel. If you did like this video, please leave that big thumbs up. I'm checking out. Y'all take care. Peace.